assistance to anyone who might need it, inshallah.
What's beautiful, you just mentioned that, is that Islam sort of highlighted potential problems in trading 1400 years ago.
Yep.
Like you just said, people at that time didn't have any sort of business ethics or knowledge of how to transact with each other and sort of killing each other for basic things.
Exactly.
So I think it's quite
At the end of it, let's be honest, how many people have fallen out over business, cut off family relations, friend relations, even attacked one another, killed one another. I mean, let's not, you cannot deny it. So some of these things seem really simple and obvious, but they're there to protect you. Very simply put, there are 5 major things that Islam protects. I mean, Shia and Sunni, of course, will slightly differ on these things, but there's 5 major things. Islam has to protect your iman. Everything, all the rules has to protect your iman. All of the rules has to protect your nasl, your family. All of the rules has to protect your aql. All of the rules has to protect your health. And all of the rules have to protect your wealth. Sunnis and Shi'as are in agreement with these 5. These are called the maqasid ad-din, or the maqasid al-sharia, the ultimate goals of the sharia. Of course, as I said, we can go into depth, blah, 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 more than 5, many more than 5. But these 5 are always principle. So the whole of these business laws are there to do protection of your wealth. Hifdh al-mal. What is also important is that, let me word this in a way, especially at the time of the Prophet and the Imams, you're talking about, as you rightly put it, people were very unethical. People are just as unethical today. But at that time, you were also talking about empires, fighting empires. People were going on trade caravans. It was dangerous. Today it's very different. We have insurance, you have a camera in your business, you're much more protected. But at that time, you could imagine how business transactions were. It wasn't like it is today, as regulated it was today. So these things much, much, much more in demand than they are today. Okay, let's give you one mas'ala, and based on gharar, you can all become mujtahideen for the night and give me fatwa. Ready? Everybody ready? Okay. Cryptocurrency. Gharar or not? Permissible or not? And why? I don't just want the yes or the no. You have to prove it to me. Firstly, what is cryptocurrency? Digital electronic currency. So it's not material. You cannot put it into your wallet. You cannot withdraw it from your bank in note or coin form. A lot of people want to invest in cryptocurrency. Number 1, الناس مسلطون على أموالهم. You are in authority over your own wealth. So I say, Ya Allah, am I allowed to invest £10,000 in crypto? First principle, you are free to be able to do it. You are مسلطون على أموالكم. You're in authority to do what you want over your own wealth. So can you invest in it, yes or no? Number 1. Principle number 2, كل شيء حلال حتى تعرف أنه حرام. Everything is halal until proven otherwise. Permissible to invest or not? Yes. What's the other principles? لا ضرر ولا ضرار. No harm, no harming. Harm cannot come to you, and you cannot do harm to someone else. Principally, is there any harm to you and any harm to anyone else if you purchase cryptocurrency? Yes or no? No. What else did we have? Don't come to gharar. What was the other principle? Ahsad. Is there any ayah of the Quran and Hadith that prohibits you from buying cryptocurrency? Anyone ask Imam Ali alayhi salam about it? Anyone ask Imam Sadiq alayhi salam about it? Anyone ask Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam about it? No. So, yes or no? Fine. So we have, so far, how many principles? 4. It ticks all the boxes for 4 principles, doesn't it? I gave you a 6th principle tonight. What was the 6th principle tonight? لا تبع ما ليس عندك. Do not sell what you do not have. So now, you have a bunch of crypto coins. Can you sell them to someone else? Wait, it doesn't exist. What are you selling to them? Is it real? If I want to be able to take something from, if I'm doing an exchange of an item to an item, the principle is you have to be able to exchange 2 items. Imam said, لا تبع ما ليس عندك. لا تبع إلا ما يملك. You cannot buy and sell. لا بيع إلا ما يملك. You cannot have any transaction except something which you actually own. I mentioned these hadith earlier on. 2 hadith from Imam in which we extrapolated this 6th principle. So number 1, you come to Marja. You're sitting in the office of Marja. You ask him, you say, Sayyid al-Marja, can I buy cryptocurrency? Can I sell cryptocurrency? He says, hadith of Imam, 6th principle, لا تبع ما ليس عندك. Tell me, is it something that you actually have ownership over? Okay. Then he says the other hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, لا بيع إلا ما يملك. You cannot transact except that which you actually own. Do you actually own this? Is it real for you to be able to own it? A cryptocurrency? No. So on this 6th principle, what would Marja say? What would he say? No. What would he say? No. What would he say?
You would say, what is, again, because it's we're getting the principle, is what is the main public say about it.
So now we have 2 problems, or 1 problem. We have the contradiction between the urf and what the hadith says. So now which one takes precedent? Urf over Imam's hadith?
No, but if the Urf generally think that it's, whilst it's not a tangible product, it does have a value to it. So it's like, for example, purchasing shares.
But a share is something real. You actually have a certificate to say you own this proportion of Manchester United at this amount, and you can.
And a cryptocurrency is absolutely the same because it's in a digital wallet. So you own a certain amount of this currency valued at a certain amount, and that's deposited into your digital wallet. So like you have a physical wallet, it's actually on your app on your phone. So it is physically there as well.
Excellent. Okay. So this is the 6th principle. What was the 5th one? The one that we studied a little bit more tonight. Gharar. Undue risk. Now before, how do we define undue risk? How do we define it just now? We looked at due diligence. What else? Can you do due diligence when purchasing crypto?
Yes.
Can you? Are there experts
Same as
on this issue?
other currencies where you can see what has gone up and down.
So what was the other definition? Due diligence.
Risk and undue risk. So
How else? We defined undue risk as you have to do due diligence. What else did we define it as? Can you remember? Blameworthy. Would you be blamed for making this transaction? Are you ignorant of this, the detail of it? We said ignorance doesn't mean just that you don't know, but the people in your sphere could tell you that this was the right thing to do, wrong thing to do. So now, is there gharar or is there no gharar? from the Islamic perspective? Is it undue risk, or is it reasonable risk? Why is it reasonable risk to you? So if you've done your due diligence, people say that you can purchase this or invest in it, then it's not undue risk.
Also, it depends on the amount of money you're spending on it. So if you're owing, say, £1,000 and you put the whole £1,000 in it, that's undue risk.
That's an interesting point. So if you want to be able, if you only have capital of £1,000 and you put a whole £1,000 into it, you're risking the entirety of your capital on something that is unknown quantity. It is, would you consider it undue risk? Whereas if you only put in £100 and you can still have £900 left, would it be considered undue risk? And that would be rational. The uqala would tell you, as an example. So now the maraji', they use these 6 principles. We used the first 4. We said, based on the first 4 principles, cryptocurrency would be halal. The 5th and the 6th principles are the ones where we are sticking. And that's where the debate comes. Now the main problem that the maraji' had was the 5th principle, particularly about it not being real, it not being something tangible. And because it was not tangible, many economists said it is unacceptable in the real world as a means of trade. Yes, at the beginning it was backdoor, people could trade this thing for things, but in the real world you couldn't use it to be able to purchase anything. Whilst it's still in that black market space, whilst it's still in the digital space, but it's not considered acceptable in the real world as a means of buying, selling, as a means of currency, the maraji' initially made it haram for you to invest in cryptocurrency. For those 2 reasons. Number 1, it's not real, it didn't exist. Number 2, it wasn't permitted in the real world. You understand what I mean by real world? It was only within certain online spaces. And those online spaces dictated the value of it. Even if it could shoot up and you could make $1 million of it, which many people did, it was still considered a gharar. Why? Because it wasn't real. So it didn't tick the 5th box, and as a result it didn't tick the 6th box. It meant it was gharar. ما ليس لا تبع ما ليس عندك لا بيع إلا ما يملك. No transactions except that which you owned. Didn't tick the box. As a result, it was gharar. Didn't tick the box. The maraji' initially came out with the view that it was batil. They did not permit you to invest in it. What we're seeing now is that it's become, what did you call it? Digital wallet. Are mainstream businesses accepting cryptocurrency? Amazon? Does Amazon accept it?
Tesla.
Does Tesla do?
Well, he himself invested $500 million.
So this would be the defining factors. Once it becomes something that is common, it's accepted by people. Uqala rationally say that this is something, even if it's not something that's in your hand, it physically exists, even if it's not something that is physically available to you like cash or card, is there gharar in it? If uqala tell us about the first 2 problems, that it's not real and that there's undue risk in it, at that point the marja would retain his fatwa to say it is batil. If, however, uqala, economists, specialists in investment, brokers, tell you that it is no longer harm, undue risk in investment, marja would change his permission. That's a very real world example of how you can apply these 6 principles. You take one mas'ala and you apply it across all 6 principles, you will easily come up with the ruling. Any questions? Otherwise we conclude.
So, but we can't go to the manager and say, if you had allowed me 5 years ago, I would have made some money. Now that you say it's allowed.
No, yeah, sadly I don't think the marja would pay you back if you don't make the millions. Because their job would be to protect your wealth. Although, of course, this one investment might have worked out, you know that 1,000 will go wrong. 1,000 of that nature, in which it's not real, in which it's not accepted in the real world, will plummet. One might shoot up, but 1,000 will go down. So can they base everything on the one? No. Because it doesn't exist, and because it's harm, because there's undue risk to it.
But I think the issue here is it's not about an individual item per se. The principles are there.
The principles are there.
Yeah, and I think what these workshops are saying is that you need to have the freedom of your own aql to make those decisions. The principles are there. You now have to go back. You can't keep on running to the marja and say, "Oh, I have to."
So in some cases, Maraji have put fatwa, and in other cases they defer to the urf and the experts, the mutakhassisin. So some of the ulama, especially in Iran, they actually early on put the fatwa, it's haram. So at that point, it's not, the fatwa has been made, right? Because they understand, they've done their due diligence, they've checked with economists, they've checked with specialists, that this is too risky at this moment for anyone to invest in legitimately. Then they put the fatwa. Some of the other maraji remained silent on it and said, you have to do your due diligence, I can't tell you anything.
It's just ironic that Iran is probably one of the countries who is manufacturing this cryptocurrency.
Now, yeah, because they know that it's a way around the sanctions. So now actually it is something that they have understood is a means to an end. It's like we're seeing, in other places how to get around sanctions. Russia's doing it very well at the moment. Iran's doing it. Ahsant. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance